Hey everybody, it's Eddie J on crypto for growmybag.tv, and here is the Sunday Roundup. We've actually got a lot to talk about today, so let me see if I can give you a quick overview of what we're going to be discussing. The SEC actions against Binance and ShapeShift, BlackRock's idea of introducing Bitcoin spot ETF exposure to a couple of their funds. We have market volatility with regard to Bitcoin, but it's not all that volatile. It's not as volatile as you would think it is. And, you know, there are other things that we're going to be discussing. Anyway, let's start to dig in, right? So over the past week, you know, I've released right here in my notes, there are 33 articles that made it into the Sunday Roundup this week. And no, we will not be hitting all 33 points. We'll kind of be going through a few of the points as we go forward. But what I do want to do, I have set up on a screen, is so that we can actually review two coins that operate within the same space, within the same industry, right? Or solving the same problem. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because I wanted to show you guys how I start to actually compare, you know, coins that operate within that same space. I keep telling you, start paying attention to those pairs and that kind of thing. And we'll get to that. The other things that I want to talk about, like BlackRock wants to introduce, they have a global allocation fund, and they want to introduce Bitcoin spot ETF exposure to that fund. And what that goes to is deeper institutional adoption. And I really want people to understand that, because there is growing retail adoption and there's growing, you know, institutional adoption. The reason why there's growing institutional adoption is because those are people that want to have some kind of exposure to the cryptocurrency space without being directly involved with touching the crypto. And that's cool. That's fine. But I think people should actually be thinking about how that's happening. I keep telling you guys that my perspective on Bitcoin versus other altcoins is Bitcoin is not like them. You're not going to do daily transactions with it because it's expensive and it's not as fast as other blockchains, right? So it's going to most likely continue to be used the same way the rich and wealthy use stocks, meaning I have a portfolio, I can go get a loan based on the value of my portfolio, pay off that loan over time, get another loan to pay off that loan, and you keep it moving because you're using the growth of your portfolio to get that money. And the reason why people do that is because the loan money that you get, right? This is made famous by a number of people, you know, even Jeff Bezos, right? I don't have to pay taxes on the money that was loaned to me. It's not income, it's a loan. So my portfolio is being leveraged to get that loan because my portfolio has this amount of money in it, you know, this kind of value, and I only need a loan for this much, you know, to live life, whatever. And I pay off that loan based on, you know, how much money I make elsewhere, but it's not me making the money, right? So I don't have to pay taxes on that money, and I still maintain the value of my portfolio. And as long as I keep paying it back, I actually do not have to worry about losing my portfolio. And that's what's going to happen to Bitcoin. People are going to hold on to Bitcoin and leverage that to go get loans. That's just fact. I'm probably not going to hold on to other coins as a solo coin. Bitcoin is the solo coin that you're going to do that with. You might be able in the future to say, here's my whole crypto portfolio, right? And leverage my whole crypto portfolio. But as far as a single coin goes, I think Bitcoin is going to be the only one that you're actually going to have used as a store of value in that way. Hence, it's not going to be, I'm going to the store, I'm going to go buy something, and I'm going to pay with Bitcoin. I don't think that's going to happen. You have too many people, too many institutions, just too many companies, too many businesses that are saying, I'm getting my Bitcoin, I'm holding my Bitcoin. Done. Michael Saylor getting up off of Bitcoin, you might as well try to get, you know, blood out of a stone. I just don't see that ever happening. Leveraging that Bitcoin holding to go get a loan to buy more Bitcoin? Oh, he's already been doing that. MicroStrategy's already been doing that. And so that's why I'm paying attention to who's purchasing and how much is going to be left for everybody else. Which is why everybody keeps saying, buy your Bitcoin, buy your Bitcoin, buy your Bitcoin. But you see how I'm looking at, what happened over the past week with BlackRock saying our global allocation fund. Yeah, we're going to expose you to Bitcoin over there. We're going to enable you to get exposed to Bitcoin over there. And we might do it with other funds as well. That is a big deal because BlackRock's not going to be the only institutional company institutional firm that's going to do that, right? Now you know why I look back to be able to look forward. That's the whole idea. The Federal Reserve is saying, Powell got out there and said, well, the digital dollar is not here. We're not doing anything with it right now. But we are talking about it. It's a very big deal that we continue to pay attention and continue to shine light on any kind of U.S. development of a CBDC. I really do think it's going to wind up going a bit too far, meaning the government would have absolute control over the dollar. Some people would say they have absolute control right now, right? Because they can freeze your bank accounts. It's true. But if you're holding cash, then they can't freeze that. They can't freeze that dollar that I have in my hand. But if you have it in a bank, they can, right? But with a CBDC, they'd be able to freeze it. They know where each and every single one of those digital dollars would be. That wallet or that wallet, but it's going to be in a wallet. And that's what's scary to me. That's what's scary to me because they would have ultimate control whether or not you have money or not. A glitch in the system could mean the difference between somebody being able to have dinner or not. So yeah, I don't like the idea of the government having that kind of complete control over the dollar or any fiat for that matter. So yeah, I'm not with that program, right? But I keyed in on that because he's saying, listen, but that's not, a CBDC is not happening right now. It's not really on the table, but we keep talking about it. That's why I pay attention to it. That's why I paid attention to that. That actually caught my eye. And then with regard to, another part of the government, this SEC said, well, we know that you have your Ethereum spot ETF applications up in there. And, we're going to kick the can down the road. I pay attention to regulatory compliance issues because that could have a profound effect as we move forward, right? So if there was to be an Ethereum spot ETF, how would that affect the market? Ethereum doesn't operate like Bitcoin. It doesn't have a finite amount. There are 21 million Bitcoins that can be minted. That's not the same as an Ethereum spot ETF, right? Ethereum doesn't work like that. So when I look at Ethereum is a transactional coin. As with other coins, they're transactional coins. So I do pay attention to those things. When I look at that, I start to break down, well, how is that going to affect prices going forward? How is that going to affect the market going forward? Has the government taken a better step forward with regard to regulating crypto? And clearly by these moves, they have not just yet. And I pay attention because every now and then you might get some kind of good news, right? That they did something right, did something in a timely fashion. This is why I pay attention, because when news hits, it's not necessarily going to hit when you expect it to hit, and it's not going to hit everybody. It takes time for it to actually get out there. So it's little things like this that I pay attention to, right? So one of the things I paid attention to was Coinbase. Coinbase, went down again. Over the past 2 weeks, they've been down twice or had glitches in their system twice just because of the amount of volume that was going on, transaction volume that was going on for, around Bitcoin and around other altcoins. People woke up to, what do you mean I have a zero balance? What are you talking about? Luckily, that didn't happen to me, but I know people that happened to. What do you mean? Oh, our system had a glitch. You make that much money off of fees and all kinds of things, and your system still has glitches like that? So what you're saying is that you can't handle the load. That's what you're saying. Which tells me that maybe I shouldn't be on there. Maybe I shouldn't be doing business with you guys if you can't handle something like that. Right? That's kind of what it says. So I sit back and I pay attention to, what's going on in the central, in the centralized exchange space. And I also pay attention to what's going on in the decentralized exchange space. Why? Because I use exchanges, whether they're centralized or decentralized, for different transactions. Somebody asked me it was Mona who asked me for, my list of, DEXs that I would use. It doesn't work like that for me. When I'm using a SEX or a DEX, centralized exchange versus decentralized exchange. Somebody got on me. I wanted to make note of that. Somebody got on me about, using acronyms and not defining those acronyms, and then saying, how I feel about something without reiterating how I feel about something. Because the assumption is that you've watched my videos before and that you know what I'm talking about. I told them that it makes me feel like I'm repeating myself when I do that, and it's kind of obnoxious to me to say that to you guys. But that's why I'm saying things like that now, because it does make sense. They made a valid point. But when I look at Coinbase and I look at all these other DEXs, SEXs, everything else, I'm very transactional. I don't store 95% of my, wallets are non-custodial. I have portions of my portfolio for various coins, various situations on SEXs, on centralized exchanges, for very specific reasons. I use DEXs for very specific reasons, and when a reason pops up, I'm off doing my research on which DEX I should use or which centralized exchange I should use for that given transaction. I'm literally running the numbers. I'm literally saying, how much money is it going to cost me to do this transaction? Can I cut down the price of that? Meaning, can I do a transaction that will actually make me money doing that transaction, so that when I do the next leg of my convoluted transaction, that it all comes around, I've made money and I've diminished the amount of fees that I'm actually paying because of the way I did my transactions. It's very rare that I actually go from this spot to this spot when I'm doing a transaction, right? It's normally that, I want to acquire a coin, right? And I can get that coin over here. And if I go there to acquire that coin, right, I'm going to pay a certain fee. But then if I flip this coin to over here, or flip this coin to get this coin, I actually make money. That's what I'm doing. I want to see how I can make money, because I want to diminish the cost of my fees, all the time, or even come out ahead when I do the transaction. So I take that time. So there is no, I use Uniswap all the time. Uniswap doesn't have all the coins that I want. MEXC doesn't have all the coins that I want. Coinbase doesn't have all the coins I want. And by the way, I live in New York, so I can't get all the coins I want from any one of these, centralized exchanges. So I've got to go an alternate route. So I pay attention to things like Coinbase can't handle the load. Should I be turning to OKC? Should I be turning to Chrono? Where should I be turning to? Or Crypto.com? Where should I be turning to handle my transaction, that particular transaction? Because I want to acquire, I want to buy or sell whatever it is I want to buy or sell. And then what am I doing ultimately? Am I going to off-ramp that into fiat? Or am I going to keep that and roll that into another coin? Those are the differences. That's what I'm looking at. Okay. And there are also tax reasons, that I do things as well. So I pay attention to what's going on with those. Something else that I'm paying attention to is the Athens stock exchange out in Greece said, yeah, we're going to think about, taking our bookmaking and putting it on SUI. Wow. Wow. So you've got traditional exchanges around the world really starting to pick up with their leveraging of blockchain for certain transactions. That ought to tell you a lot, right? And then, you know, I had another conversation with somebody about, you know, exchanges, and I was just like, yeah, you know, exchanges are nice, but then you have like, you know, a platform like ChangeLly where literally you're just flipping one, you're really just flipping one coin into another, and it's more like a pure forex play that they're just making that transfer for you. Wow, that's another way of doing it. And there are other companies like ChangeLly that, you know, perform the same services, but you know, I remember my first time using ChangeLly. No, this is not a commercial for them. I'm just sharing my experience. I used them for a transaction, and the transaction went south. Couldn't find my transaction, nothing. I got a hold of somebody at ChangeLly, and it was fixed in a heartbeat. A heartbeat, it was fixed. Now you know why I do research every single time that I'm about to do a transaction where I have to use a centralized exchange or a decentralized exchange, because it's at that moment, like, you wouldn't want to hop on an exchange that's having an outage problem. Did you hear about anybody else having an outage problem at the same time that Coinbase did? Binance had a problem, but it was separate and distinct. Binance can handle the load. What Binance can't handle is, you know, regulatory compliance. I hate to say it, but that really is the case. You're talking about Germany, India, they've got Nigeria, they've got problems all over the world when it comes to, you know, regulatory compliance. And that's a very big deal. That's a very big deal. Hong Kong gave them a pat on the back, because they are, you know, really helping out with regard to anti-money laundering steps, things like that, you know, cybercrime, things like that. That's great. That's nice. But on the other hand, they still really suck when it comes to regulatory compliance. Still the largest in the world, but they're faltering in a major fashion. And how Binance runs their business at the top level, at Binance level, Binance.us is also having those problems. Now you know why I look at each and every centralized exchange for each and every transaction I have. And I use sites like CoinMarketCap and, you know, Live Coin Watch, CoinGecko to figure out what are the trading pairs and where. And do they play in New York? Like, can I do that within New York state bounds? Because that ultimately, depending on where you are jurisdictionally, that's going to be, you know, your issue. Can I do that within the parameters that I have set before me in New York versus Wisconsin versus Florida versus Connecticut? There's your problem. So when you sit back and you look at that, you're kind of like, oh, yeah, I can't do that in New York. So how else can I do it? Oh, I can maybe use a DEX to find that coin and see how that works out. Maybe ChangeLly can do it for me. So I'm looking at different ways and different places to acquire what I want to acquire. Or can I get one of my friends to handle the transaction for me, and I just send them whatever it is they need to handle the transaction for me? Because we do that for each other, right? You want to be careful with that because you're literally, you know, handling a transaction outside your control. So you want to pay attention. But that's why I pay very close attention to what's going on with regard to DEXs and SEXs. Which is why I do pay attention to Gemini getting kicked out of New York because of what they did, having to pay I think it was 1.2 billion. I pay attention to things like that. I pay attention to the banking industry, right? New York Community Bank having issues. They just got a cash infusion for $1 billion. Why is that? Well, because they were tanking. And remember, they had just purchased, you know, all that, you know, everything from Signature Bank, which was a major crypto bank. To NYCB was supposed to be that replacement, and they're faltering. So Steve Mnuchin and his crew came in and said, "Here's $1 billion to, you know, keep you afloat. We'll figure things out as we move forward, but that'll keep you afloat for right now as we go through the organization, go through the bank to see what we can do to stabilize this." Okay, we'll see how long that cash infusion helps. I don't know, which is why we pay attention. Then you have Custodia Bank, which is all about crypto, right? And they haven't been allowed to become a mark to market. We'll see. I could have that term incorrect, but the whole idea is that they would have the ability to handle transactions directly with the Federal Reserve, and they have not been approved yet, and they're pushing really, really hard, like mad hard, mad hard, right? And then I'm looking at, different things like, so DCG is having issues. New York State is saying, hey, we think that, you're operating fraudulently within our state, and DCG is pushing back. The digital currency group is pushing back against that, saying, no, that's not the case, whatever. And I said earlier this week, listen, whenever somebody says, your claim is fraudulent, I immediately think their claim is true. And now you just have to prove it. I immediately think that, right? Because most governments do not want to take a case unless they think they can win. It doesn't mean they're going to win, but they want to know that they can win. And, DCG is messed up all over the place. And I'm thinking New York State probably has a good case. So I'm paying attention to that because Digital Currency Group has a lot of holdings, including Grayscale. So you can imagine if they need to raise money, they've got a whole bunch of Grayscale shares that they can sell. And that would obviously affect the market, right? So there's a lot of stuff going on around there. A lot of stuff that's going on around there. So when I look at what happened this past week, where Bitcoin is, Bitcoin traded for a while, it's in the 67 range. Then it started trading for a while in the 68 range. Now we're seeing Bitcoin trade at the 69 range. Yes, it did pop up to 70. So it did do what I say it was going to do, but it was there for like a split second and it came right back down, like way down to like 65, 66, and then came back up. So you can see how we've been kind of stair stepping, right, with Bitcoin. And I like that because there's not a ton of volatility, right? But there's a way for you to make money. And it says that as we continue to approach the halving event, I'm just dumping into Bitcoin, right? If I have $100, at least 25% of it is dedicated to Bitcoin without me even thinking about it. That means I really only have 75. And it's a matter of where am I going to put that other 75? Which brings me to my next point, right? Yeah, you can see all my notes for today's topics, right? But I wanted to bring you to this. So a lot of people ask me, I keep talking about how I compare different coins, and literally here's Filecoin versus Rweave, and you can compare them. This site gives you a nice tool that compares them from 1 day to 7 days to 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, and all time. And you can see where, all the way down here, you can say, well, over the past 1 day, yeah, they've both gone down. And for the 1 day, Filecoin's been better. I want to say, just before I started shooting this video, Filecoin was not better for the 1 day. All right. It was Rweave that was better for the 1 day. And again, same thing for the 7 day. And I'm showing this to you because I have a friend, Phil, pun not intended. Phil has a business that he built on top of Rweave. So he did the research between Filecoin and Rweave and decided to build on top of Rweave. And Phil's somebody that's technical, that I actually trust his judgment. He's done a couple of projects with me where I've hired him to do some project work for me. So I know he does his research and his due diligence to the hilt. So I was looking at Filecoin versus Rweave, and I just said, let me start walking through this analysis. And I do this analysis all the time. And right now you're seeing that, wow, over this period of time. Now, again, 20 minutes ago, Rweave was the winner, not Filecoin. But I'm looking right here and you go, wow, Filecoin is doing better. Filecoin is actually ranked higher. I think they're number 28 on Coin Market Cap, and Rweave, I think, is 48, 27 or 48, something like that, for Filecoin versus Rweave. But you look to see, well, how long you've been making money. You kind of sit there and you kind of go, well, if you look at the price down here, we're both under $10 at this point, right? But who's jumped up more? And I'm just like, how are you doing one versus the other in the same space, tackling the same exact issue? This is what I pay attention to, and this is how I start looking at this. And they're neck and neck. Because like I said, 20 minutes ago, Rweave was the better choice from a money perspective now. So I pay attention to those kinds of things. Right? And this is one of the tools that I use to actually do that. Now I can do this manually, but here's a site that has it packaged for me nice and easy. Has it nice and packaged for me. And so I can see all of this all in one shot, right? Now you can see, well, Filecoin is, done better. But you're talking about two coins, both above $2 billion in market cap, that both solve the same kind of thing. And you're kind of like, oh, okay, well, I can look at this and I can like whichever one I like based on what I'm doing. So based on, like I said, 30 minutes ago, Rweave was better. So I guess numbers change just now. So they're neck and neck. So I can invest in either one and feel good, feel okay with it. But when I look at, what my friend did, I'm looking back and I'm kind of going, yeah, from a technology perspective, I'm probably going to run with Rweave, because I know somebody technical that's been through it. Something else I wanted to show you guys. We've got big inflationary numbers coming out this week. You have the core CPI coming out this week, and then you have PPI. So core CPI is going to come out on Tuesday. PPI is going to come out on Thursday, right? And so all of that, and then on Friday you have consumer sentiment, all that kind of stuff coming out. So all of those numbers are going to go toward the Fed, and that's going to affect the stock market this week in a major fashion. And those are economic numbers that I'll be looking at to say, well, how is that going to affect us? Wow, and I left it on my face. That's funny. How is that going to affect us going forward from a U.S. economy perspective, right? And let me tell you something. You've got to pay attention to what's going on in your local country, where you are. And then you have to look at it from a global perspective as well, which is why I tell you guys about, who's doing what in what country, because what they're doing in that country, like certain countries, their economies are really, really bad. Like really, really bad. If you look at China, they're not doing so hot. So them spending all this money to do outreach into other countries, I pay attention to that. Because that's going to affect the market, both the stock market and the cryptoverse. So this week, what am I expecting? I'm expecting, the fear and greed index to go up. I'm expecting DeFi Llama. I'm expecting total value lock to go up. Why is the question? Because more and more people are getting used to the idea of crypto. They really are getting used to the idea of crypto from a investment perspective. That adoption from a day-to-day transaction perspective still has to happen. Hasn't really kicked in yet, but that's going to come. And we should all be prepared and doing research on that. Because when I walk into a store and I can buy a bag of chips and I can pay with, Stacks or Matic or whatever it is, Ethereum or whatever, that's when you've got some serious adoption. And nobody wants to talk about it, but you can already do that in certain countries. Here's something else to consider. As you're able to do that more and more and more, the question is going to become, what happens to fiat? Which is why you keep hearing people talk about CBDCs. Which is why I keep telling you guys that your definition of a bank is going to change. Understand what kind of things you require from a bank and where else you might be able to get those services. You put your money into a bank savings account. Well, now people are going direct and handling their money directly, right? Because why would I put my money in a bank savings account? That bank is going to do whatever and make money off that money. And then I'm going to get this tiny, tiny, itty bitty little percentage of a percentage given to me as thanks for letting me make money off your money. As opposed to I can go to, an asset manager and have them make money for me with my money. That's going direct. What do you think banks do? That's what they do. But now I'm going direct. Or I can make my own doggone investments, and that's really direct. I can get into my own mutual funds. I can get into my own, ETFs. I can get into my own stocks directly. It wasn't that easy that long ago to get into stocks. It was tough. I had to get with a trader. I had to do all these different things. It wasn't available to everybody. Now you can buy stock almost everywhere. I can buy stock using Cash App, Robinhood. That wasn't available to people a long time ago. Not even a long time ago. Think 10 years. I wasn't here. Couldn't do it. So now can you not only buy stock, but you can buy fractionalized stock. And now you can also buy fractionalized real estate. Depends on where you are. But these are the things that are going to affect your bag going forward. So I look back to see what I'm going to see going forward. And we're approaching the halving event. Let me go back to this. The halving event is about 37 days away. About 37 days away. And as we keep getting closer and closer and closer, I think you're going to continue to see Bitcoin rise and rise and rise. As a matter of fact, as we get closer, I'm expecting Bitcoin to rise more. Not to say that there won't be pullbacks and opportunities, to take your profit, and you'll see a little bit of a dip. But I'm saying I think we're going to see it rise more. We're going to see higher highs and we're going to see higher lows. And that's why I pay attention to all this news. All right. This is really, really why. If you look at the chart that I have, here's, you can see my different bands. You see this yellow band right here? A little while ago, it was wider. Like, I had zoomed in, so it was wider. So we traded within this yellow band for a while. Then we just jumped up into the light blue band, and we traded there for a minute. Then we literally just jumped up even faster into this band. Now we're jumping up, and now we're in between bands, because I assume we'll have a higher band there, probably about 74, 74.2, around that number. But right now you can see we're trading over here, right in between. And if you look, we did the same thing over here for a period of time, and then we just bumped up. And we didn't just break into this band. We started trading at the upper half of that band. Then again, we just bumped up and we started trading in the upper half of my next band. And I'm expecting that we're going to do the same thing. We're going to bounce here for a little bit longer, but I'm expecting this week that we're going to establish a new high. That's what I'm expecting this week. I really am expecting it. I'm thinking it's going to be around 72 and change. And I think we'll sustain. It's not about hitting it and then coming back down. It's about hitting it and then maintaining around that range. And that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking we're going to establish a new high and maintain around that new high. Anyway, this is Eddie Joe in crypto for growmybag.tv. If you like what I'm doing, please drop me a note. I love hearing from you guys. I love hearing from you. Oh, somebody asked me to do research on Rweave. They're an NFT market space, but they're really not an NFT only, market space. They do, just collectibles. And NFTs happens to be one of the things they can do. They can flip your correct collectibles into the metaverse, that kind of thing. Not really impressed with them. I mean, collectibles are nice. Collectibles are collectibles. We used to do business with a company that did collectibles, that whole, Transformers, Barbie kind of thing. Really cool space. Nothing wrong with it. Just, not my cup of tea. But, that site does look well. So, yeah, I'm not gonna hype this site, but that site looks like it's going to do well in the future. Now, would I buy a coin? No, I'm not going to buy a coin. Would I go there to buy NFTs? Sure. If there was something there that I was interested in, I absolutely would. They're all about collectibles, not just digital collectibles. So yeah, hat tip to that team. Not bad. Anyway, if you have other suggestions on what to research, things like that, I know I've been slow on doing research because we're like really close to having that book out. It should be out to the printers this week. I might have to put the class back. I might have to push back on the class only because there's a lot going on. And because of that, I have a seminar coming up. I'm going to be at another seminar for another social media platform that we own, that we're partners in this week. There's a seminar for that. It's around nursing and healthcare. It's also a learning platform. So there's that. That's what I have going on, next month. I've got a speaking engagement with the Small Business Development Corporation in April. So there's a lot going on. So I'm trying to time when the class should be and everything else. And if the class gets good feedback, I'll keep doing that class. There are a lot of people out there that just need to know the 101, and we'll have the book. Like I said, you actually get a full book. Anybody who signs up for the class is going to get a physical book delivered to them. A physical book, because I want you to have that at your fingertips, and you're not always sitting in front of a computer. I don't want you to sit in front of a computer all the time. Sometimes it's just really nice just to pick up a piece of paper and read it. All right. If you have suggestions on what you want me to research or how I can make things better, thank you very much to the person that told me, hey, Eddie, you need to share your thoughts every time you say, how I feel about that, because not everybody knows how you feel about that, because they don't watch every day, because they're new even. So thank you for watching, and thank you for all the feedback that I've gotten. I will continue to try to get better. Hope you have a good one. Bye-bye.